I watched my family bury a secret, then dug it back up 20 years later. It started with a letter. No return address. Just a plain white envelope wedged into my mailbox on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday. Inside was a photograph, grainy, slightly faded, like it had been copied from a security camera. But it was her. I'd recognize those eyes anywhere. Hazel, wide, almost too big for her face. My cousin Maggie, missing since 2005. The date printed at the bottom of the photo? Last year. I swear, for a moment, the world tilted sideways. I sat down right there on the curb, gripping the photo like it might vanish if I blinked. Maggie. She was for the last time I saw her. Small, sunburnt, with wild blonde curls that never stayed in a ponytail. She wore these pink jelly sandals and carried a stuffed rabbit that looked like it had been chewed on by wolves. She vanished during our annual family trip to Lake Rockwell. 1 second she was there, playing in the grass behind the cabin. The next, gone. They searched. The police came. Dogs. Helicopters. But nothing. Everyone said she must have wandered into the lake. That she drowned. But I remember the look on my mom's face when she came back inside that night. Pale. Silent. Not panicked. Not broken. Just locked up. And then we never talked about it again. No funerals. No vigils. No framed photos. It was like Maggie never existed. And now this. A photo. A name scrawled in ink on the back. Lena. Age 23. Not Maggie. Not even close. But it was her. I knew it like I knew my own name. And if that letter found me, it meant someone else out there knew the truth. I'm James, by the way. 30 years old. IT guy. Boring life. No wife. No kids. Just a studio apartment and a habit of listening to too many true crime podcasts when I can't sleep. Guess it makes sense that I was the one who couldn't let it go. Growing up, every time I asked about Maggie, I got the same response. You were young, sweetheart. You don't remember it right. She's gone, Jamie. Let it be. But I did remember. I remembered how quiet everyone got that week. I remembered how my Uncle Todd scrubbed the deck for hours the next morning, even though it hadn't rained. I remembered my aunt's bruised wrist. And I remembered the stuffed bunny, half buried beneath the steps, muddy and torn. I told my mom. She said it was just a dream, but I never forgot it. So now, 2 decades later, I held that photo and made a decision. I was going back. Back to Lake Rockwell. Back to the place where Maggie disappeared and where my childhood broke wide open. The lake house hadn't changed much. Still perched on that lonely strip of forest, wrapped in pine and shadow. Still silent, too silent. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. Not my parents. Not my sister. Not even my best friend, Ben, who usually knows everything before I do. I needed to see it with my own eyes. To feel the dirt under my boots. To stand where Maggie had last been seen. The cabin was locked, but the back path to the lake was open. Overgrown now. Wild with vines and silence. Every step felt like walking backward through time. Back to fireflies. To mosquito bites and roasted marshmallows. To Maggie's laugh echoing through the trees. God, she laughed like a bird. Sharp, quick, impossible to ignore. I found myself at the old dock. Rotting. Warped. I stepped onto it, each board groaning like it might give out. And then I saw it. Something small, pale, wedged between the boards. I knelt down. A button. Pink. With a tiny rabbit engraved in the center. I swear my hands started shaking. Because I remembered that button. It used to be sewn to Maggie's favorite dress. The one she wore the night she vanished. And it was right here, 20 years later. Still lodged in the wood. When I got back to my motel, there was another envelope taped to the door. No name. No stamp. Inside, a second photo. A girl with wild blonde curls. Walking into a bookstore in Chicago. My stomach flipped. Same eyes. Same face. But this time, someone had written 3 words on the back. Don't trust them. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I sat on the edge of the bed, both photos spread out in front of me like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't touched in years. But this wasn't some cold case. This was my blood. And someone wanted me to know she was still alive. Or maybe they wanted me to do something about it. I kept flipping the second photo over. The handwriting was tight, rushed. Don't trust them. Them. Not him, not her. Them. That could only mean one thing. Family. The next morning, I drove 2 towns over to visit the one person who'd never fed me fairy tales, my great-aunt Clara. She's my grandmother's sister, and trust me when I say, she doesn't sugarcoat a damn thing. She lives in a little brick house with lace curtains and exactly 300 ceramic angels. Clara used to babysit Maggie and me every summer. She was there the night everything fell apart. I wasn't even through the front door before she hit me with it. "You've been to the lake," she said, like she could smell the dirt on my boots. I froze. Her gaze dropped to the photos in my hand. "So it's starting," she whispered. I stared at her. "What's starting?" She didn't answer, just motioned for me to sit. And for the first time since I was a kid, I felt like I was in the presence of someone who knew everything and had chosen silence over truth. Until now. Clara made tea, poured it slow, methodical. Her hands didn't shake. Not once. She placed a cup in front of me, sat down across the table, and said, "I wasn't supposed to be there that night." "What do you mean?" She looked out the window. Her voice dropped. "Your mother called me in a panic. Said something had happened. That Maggie was missing. But when I got there, nobody was searching." I blinked. "What?" "They weren't looking, Jamie. They were waiting. Sitting inside. Lights off. Like they knew no one would find her." My stomach turned. I remembered that silence. That weird stillness. "You're telling me they didn't even try?" She nodded slowly. "Your Uncle Todd, he was out back. By the shed. With a shovel." "What?" Her voice trembled now. I asked what he was doing. He told me not to ask questions. "And then your mom." She paused, swallowing hard. "Your mom said Maggie wandered off. Into the lake." "But you didn't believe her." "No," Clara said. "Because Maggie hated water. Wouldn't even go ankle deep. Screamed like murder if it touched her." I felt the blood drain from my face. "But they stuck to the story." "They did more than that," she whispered. "They erased her. Threw away her toys. Tore down her drawings. Painted over her name on the wall." She reached into a drawer, pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping. "Child presumed drowned. Search called off." A single column. No photo. No quotes. Just a throwaway paragraph about tragic accidents and low visibility. "They didn't want anyone asking questions," Clara said. "And they paid to keep it that way." I leaned back, breath shaky. "So what happened?" She looked at me with eyes like glass. "I don't know. But I do know this." She leaned forward, voice barely audible. "The day after Maggie disappeared, I found her rabbit." I stopped breathing. "The one she never went anywhere without." Clara nodded. "It was stuffed in the trash, covered in blood." I left Clara's house with my head spinning. Blood. A shovel. No search. Someone had lied. Or worse, someone had done something. And if Maggie had survived, that meant someone helped her vanish. Someone buried the truth. And now that someone was trying to pull me into the mess they made. That night, I booked a ticket to Chicago. It was where the second photo had been taken. The timestamp on the bookstore's security footage matched the location of a small shop in Lincoln Park. I figured I'd walk in, ask around, show the photo, maybe get lucky. But when I got to the counter and pulled out the image, the clerk's face changed immediately. He stared at the photo, then at me, then back at the photo. "She was here. Yesterday." My heart skipped. "You sure?" He nodded. "Yeah. She comes in every Thursday. Usually grabs coffee and heads upstairs to the reading loft." "Did she leave a name?" "No. But she goes by Lena." He said it slowly, like it was too familiar, too practiced. "And?" I asked. He hesitated. "She left something behind. A book." He ducked under the counter and pulled out a weathered hardcover journal. No title, no spine label. I flipped it open. The inside cover was blank, except for one line written in blue ink. "If you found me, they probably know too." And on the very last page, a single word, scrawled in uneven handwriting. "Run." The book was heavier than it looked. Not because of the pages, but because of what it meant. She'd been here. She was alive. And somehow she knew I'd come. I didn't open the journal again until I got back to the motel. Something about it felt sacred, like opening it in public would jinx everything. I locked the door, pulled the blinds tight, then sat at the edge of the bed with my heart thudding like a drum. I ran my hand across the worn leather. No name, no dates, just time buried between paper. When I cracked it open, the scent of old ink and faint perfume hit me hard. And then I saw her handwriting. Messy, looping, sometimes smudged, but undeniably Maggie's. Or Lena's. The entries didn't have dates. They were scattered, emotional, fragmented. But one thing was clear. She'd been writing this for years. The first line? "My name isn't Lena, but I don't remember what it was before." I froze. She'd forgotten. Or she'd been made to forget. Most entries read like diary fragments. Memories that didn't quite line up. Mentions of places she didn't recognize, faces she half remembered. A girl with a braid. A dog named Thunder. A house with blue shutters. Then a sharp shift. I used to see him in the hallway. The man with the belt. I sat up straighter. He said I was lucky, that I got a second chance, but I don't remember the first. Another page. The woman in the yellow sweater calls me by the wrong name. She cries when she thinks I'm asleep. I don't think she's my mom. The pit in my stomach opened wider. Had she been taken in by someone else? Or planted there? I flipped forward. An entry written in bold, shaky letters. They told me my family died, that I was the only one who survived the fire. But I dream of a boy with a missing tooth. He makes me laugh. His name starts with J. That was me. I knocked my front tooth out on a swing set when I was 5. She remembered. Somewhere deep down, she remembered me. I kept reading. Hours passed. One section was torn out, jagged edges like it had been ripped in a panic. And the entries after that? Darker. Short sentences. Paranoia bleeding through the ink. I see him again. Always near the bookstore. He wears sunglasses even when it rains. He talks to the clerk. Pretends to browse. I think he knows I know. I slammed the book shut. My hands were sweating. She wasn't just hiding from the past. Someone was watching her. Still. The next morning, I returned to the bookstore. Same clerk. Same casual smile. But when I showed him the photo again, something shifted. He leaned in. She's not just a regular, he whispered. She's scared. I nodded. Did she ever mention being followed? He paused, then glanced around. There's this guy? Shows up almost every time she does. Never buys anything. Just lingers. Describe him. He frowned. Mid-40s. Thin. Always wears this brown cap, pulled low. Real quiet. I swallowed. Do you have cameras? Only in the front. Not back in the loft. Of course. I thanked him and walked out, but my gut told me I wasn't alone. There was a weight behind me. A shadow that moved when I moved. At the crosswalk, I looked over my shoulder. And there he was. Brown cap. Sunglasses. He looked away when I spotted him, but too late. I'd seen him. And something about the way he adjusted his coat made my blood go cold. This wasn't just some random creep. This was someone who didn't want Maggie, or me, found. I ducked into a coffee shop, ordered something I didn't want, and watched him through the window. He didn't follow. Didn't approach. Just waited. Like he'd done it before. I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo. Sent it to Clara. 10 minutes later, she texted back. His name is Gerald. He used to work with your uncle. My throat went dry. I fired back. What kind of work? No reply. Just dots. Then they disappeared. Another text came through. This time, just 3 words. Don't go home. But I was already on the way. Because tucked into the back of Maggie's journal was a folded map of Lake Rockwell. And on it, a red X, marked right behind the shed. The same shed where my uncle had stood 20 years ago, holding a shovel. And something told me that whatever was buried there was never meant to be found. The air felt heavier as I turned onto the dirt road that led to the lake house. Like the trees themselves were holding their breath. I hadn't been back here since I was a kid, not since the week Maggie disappeared. But I remembered that shed. Small, slanted, covered in peeling green paint and coiled with ivy. Even back then, it gave me the creeps. Now, as I stepped through the overgrown grass and circled around it, I saw something that stopped me cold. Fresh footprints. Deep ones. Someone had been here recently. Too recently. I moved fast. Grabbed the rusted shovel I'd tossed into my trunk back in Chicago. The red X Maggie had marked on the map was exactly 3 steps behind the shed, just beneath the tree line. I stabbed the ground and started digging. The dirt was softer than I expected, like it had already been disturbed once. And about a foot down, my shovel hit something solid. I dropped to my knees, scraping away the earth with my hands. It wasn't a box. Not wood. Plastic. A weathered storage bin, the kind people keep in garages. I pulled it out, heart racing. Wiped the top clean. No lock. Just a snap-on lid. I opened it. Inside, a child's dress. Faded pink. Stiff with age and something else. Dark stains across the collar. My stomach turned. Underneath it, a sealed Ziploc bag containing a small pair of jelly sandals. Maggie's. And under that, a stack of photos. They looked like stills from an old camcorder. Grainy, low-res, but unmistakable. One showed Maggie playing near the dock. Another, her sitting alone on the stairs, hugging her rabbit. The last one, She was crying, eyes red, face flushed, being held by someone just off frame. Only part of an arm was visible, but it was enough. A man's forearm, covered in a distinct tattoo. 3 black birds. I recognized it instantly. Uncle Todd. My chest was tight as I placed everything back into the bin. There was no doubt in my mind now. She didn't drown. She didn't wander off. Something happened, and at least one person in my family knew the truth. Maybe more. Back at the car, I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the steering wheel, hands shaking. I wanted to scream or punch something, but mostly, I wanted answers. I grabbed my phone and dialed the only person I thought might finally break. My sister, Emily. We hadn't talked in over a year. Things got messy after Mom's funeral. But Emily was older than me. She remembered more, saw more. She picked up on the second ring. James? She sounded surprised. Tired. I didn't waste time. Did you know about Maggie? Silence. Emily. Another beat. Then, you need to stop digging. My blood went cold. You knew? I didn't say that, she snapped. I said you need to stop. Before someone gets hurt. I swallowed hard. Did he do something to her? Todd. More silence. Then something cracked in her voice. Don't ask me that. I leaned forward, pressing the phone tight. She's alive, Em. I found her journal. She remembered me. She gasped. Just slightly. But enough. James, if she's alive, you need to stay away. There are people who... Her voice cut out. Static buzzed. Then a new voice came through. Cold. Male. This line isn't safe. I yanked the phone away and checked the screen. Call ended. Blocked number. What the hell was that? I didn't go back to the motel. Didn't feel safe anymore. Instead, I drove to the next town, checked into a cheap roadside inn under a fake name, and stashed the bin under the bed. That night, I barely slept. Images of that pink dress haunted me. And the photos, especially the last one. Maggie's face. The fear in her eyes. Uncle Todd's tattooed arm gripping her shoulder. And something else I hadn't noticed at first, a blurry reflection in the window behind them. Someone else. Standing just out of focus. Watching. The next morning, I woke up to a knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. I didn't move. Another knock. This time softer. I crept to the peephole and looked out. My heart stopped. It was Maggie. Older. Tired. But definitely her. She was standing there in a dark hoodie, hands stuffed in the pockets, eyes darting up and down the hallway. I opened the door slowly. She didn't smile. Didn't speak. Just stared at me. You weren't supposed to come back here, she whispered. I couldn't find my voice. She looked down the hall again, then slipped inside quickly and shut the door behind her. We don't have much time, she said, pulling the hood back. And what she said next made my skin crawl. They know you have the photos. She didn't sit down, just stood there by the motel window, arms folded across her chest, watching the parking lot like she expected someone to pull in any second. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. After 20 years of silence, denial, and lies, Maggie, or Lena, or whoever she had to become to survive, was standing 3 feet away from me. And she looked terrified. Not of me, but of whoever was following her. They know you have the photos, she repeated. The box. All of it. How? I asked, voice low. She shrugged, but there was no calm in the motion. Same way they always know. Gerald was at the bookstore the day after you came in. My stomach twisted. That guy in the brown cap. They're watching me. Have been for years, she said. But now that you're involved. Her voice trailed off. She finally turned to face me. Same eyes. Same crooked front tooth. But harder now. Weathered. I saw someone who'd lived most of her life in the dark, fighting to stay out of sight. I motioned to the edge of the bed. You want to sit? She hesitated, then nodded once. When she sat, her shoulders finally dropped, just an inch. Like she could let go a little. You remember anything? I asked gently. She smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Flashes. Sounds. That stupid dock with the loose board. Your mom's cherry pie. Uncle Todd's breath. Always smelled like cigarettes and mouthwash. I waited. Let her speak at her own pace. Then she said something I didn't expect. You were the only one who ever told me the truth. I blinked. What do you mean? She looked at me, really looked. When we were kids, remember how everyone kept telling me monsters weren't real? I nodded. She leaned forward. You were the only one who whispered. Some of them look like people. A chill ran down my spine. Because I did remember that. And I meant it. She pulled something from her pocket. A folded slip of paper. Worn, crinkled, I drew this the night it happened, she said, laying it flat on the table. It was a child's drawing. Crude. Stick figures. But it hit me like a truck. A little girl in a pink dress. A man with black lines across his arm. Another figure standing in the shadows. No face. Just eyes. Then, at the top, scrawled in a childish hand, "Tell James the truth." I looked up. "You made this back then?" She nodded. "Slipped it under my pillow the night before I left. But someone else found it." My chest tightened. "Who?" She looked down. "Your mom." I didn't want to believe it. Couldn't. But deep down, I already knew. There'd always been this weight in her silence. Something colder than just grief. Maggie kept talking, voice barely above a whisper. "They didn't mean to hurt me. Not at first. I think it started as a scare tactic." I frowned. "Scare tactic?" She nodded. "I saw something I wasn't supposed to. A fight between Todd and your dad. About money. Land. Some deal gone sideways." Her eyes went glassy. "They thought I'd tell someone. So Todd tried to scare me into staying quiet. Dragged me out behind the shed. Shouted. Shook me. Then I fell." She paused. I hit my head on a rock. Passed out. He thought I was dead. I stared at her, heart pounding. "And instead of calling for help, they tried to cover it up," she said. "Told everyone I wandered off. Let the lake take the blame." I swallowed. "And the woman who took you in?" "She was hired. A fixer. Clean-up crew for people like Todd. She raised me under a new name. Gave me just enough truth to keep me confused." Her hands trembled slightly. "For years, I thought maybe I had drowned. That I was a ghost in someone else's life." I couldn't sit anymore. I stood up, paced the tiny room. "Why now?" I asked. "Why come back?" She looked up. "Because you found me. And because," her voice cracked, "I think someone else is about to disappear." I stopped cold. "Who?" She didn't answer right away. Just reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. A recent one. My niece. Emily's daughter. 7 years old. Bright eyes. Toothless grin. "Her name's Lucy," Maggie whispered. "And Gerald's been following her." I dropped into the chair across from her, blood roaring in my ears. "This isn't just about covering up the past," I said. "No," she replied. "It's about making sure no one talks." I gripped the table edge. "So what do we do?" She leaned in, voice low, steady. "We go to the source." I frowned. "Uncle Todd." She shook her head. "Worse." Then she whispered the one name I never expected to hear again. "The man who paid to make me disappear." She looked me straight in the eyes. "Was your father?" I didn't say anything at first. Just stared at her across the room, the walls suddenly closing in. The motel felt smaller. Hotter. Like the oxygen had been sucked right out of the air. My father? My father? I knew Todd was messed up. He always had that edge. That twitchy, angry thing behind his smile. But my dad? He was supposed to be the normal one. The calm in the storm. The guy who fixed broken toys and paid bills on time. He taught me how to ride a bike. How to tie a tie. How to keep my voice steady when everything else was shaking. He was supposed to be good. "Are you sure?" I asked, and it came out barely above a whisper. Maggie nodded slowly. "He paid her," she said. "The woman who took me in." I didn't know it at first. She used to say she was saving me from something worse. She paused, swallowed. But on my 15th birthday, I found an envelope in her dresser. Bank slips, all wired from the same account, with your dad's name on them. I gripped the arms of the chair so hard my knuckles cracked. "You kept this to yourself all these years." I didn't know what to do with it. What good would it do? No one was going to believe the dead girl came back to tell her story. She laughed, but it was hollow. "Wounded. I ran when I was 17. Left everything behind. Changed my name. Disappeared again. But then the letters started." "What letters?" She looked down. "Someone knew I was still alive. Knew where I was. They told me if I ever came near your family, near you, they'd finish what Todd started." I stood and started pacing. My mind couldn't catch up. It was like pieces of my childhood were being yanked off the wall and smashed on the floor. "My dad always hated Todd," I said, trying to make sense of it. "Said he was a screw-up. That he cost the family too much." Maggie looked up. "Maybe that's exactly why he did it. To cover Todd's mess. Or maybe to protect himself. I don't know." I looked over at her. "Then why the hell target Lucy? She's 7. She hasn't done anything." Maggie's voice dropped. "She's not just Emily's daughter." I froze. "What are you talking about?" "She's Todd's too." Silence. "The kind that presses on your chest," and makes your heartbeat feel like thunder. No, I whispered. No, that's not. Emily would never. She didn't know, Maggie said gently. Not at first. They had a thing before she met her husband. Quick. Messy. I sat down hard. That would make Lucy my cousin's kid. Maggie nodded. And Todd's leverage. I put my head in my hands. Everything was unraveling. My family wasn't just broken. It was engineered that way. Held together with secrets and silence. Protected by people who do anything to keep the truth buried. They're watching her, Maggie said. Because they think she might remember something she was never even there for. That's how scared they are. That's how far they're willing to go. And my dad? I asked. He's just okay with this? She looked at me. I think he's worse than Todd. I didn't want to believe her. But deep down I did. Because suddenly, 100 things started making sense. Why Dad cut ties with Clara. Why Maggie's name vanished from every photo album. Why Mom always looked away when I asked questions about that summer. They all knew. And they let a child vanish, to protect themselves. I have to get Lucy out, I said. Maggie nodded. She's still with Emily? Yeah. You think she's in on it? I hesitated. No. Emily's scared. I heard it in her voice. But she's not part of this. Not like they are. Maggie stood. Then we go now. We don't wait. An hour later, we were back on the road. I didn't call Emily. Didn't warn her. Just drove. I didn't want anyone listening in. Not now. We got to her house around midnight. Quiet street. Porch light still on. Front curtains drawn. I stepped out first, checking the sidewalk, scanning the parked cars. Then I saw it. A sedan, parked across the street. Lights off. Engine idling. A shape behind the wheel. Maggie followed my gaze. It's him, she whispered. It's Gerald. I didn't wait. I bolted across the lawn and pounded on Emily's front door. No answer. Emily, I hissed. It's me. Open up. Still nothing. Then I noticed the door was slightly open. Just a crack. I pushed it gently. It creaked wide. The lights were on. TV buzzing static in the corner. And the living room, empty. Emily, I called out, stepping inside. No reply. I moved quickly, heart pounding. Down the hallway, into Lucy's room. Her bed was unmade. Toys scattered. Window wide open. Curtains fluttering. And taped to the glass was a note. For words. Written in blocky handwriting. You're too late, James. The second I saw that note, something inside me snapped. Gone was the kid who used to obey the adults, stay quiet, trust the family to do the right thing. That James was dead. What was left was someone who'd dig up every grave they'd buried, tear down every lie they'd built, and burn their secrets to the damn ground. Because now it wasn't just about Maggie. It was about Lucy. And this time, I wasn't losing her. I stormed back to the front door just as Maggie caught up to me. She's gone, I said, shoving the note in her hands. They took her. She read it, jaw clenched. Where the hell was Emily? I don't know. The door was open. The house was lit. Something's off. Maggie didn't hesitate. Check the bedrooms. Look for anything missing. We split up. I ran to the master room. Emily's suitcase was still in the closet. Purse still on the dresser. Phone charging on the nightstand. She hadn't left willingly. Maggie called out. Guest bathroom's clean. No sign of a struggle. I came back into the hall, breathing hard. Then someone came in and took them fast. She nodded. Someone with keys. We checked the rest of the house in silence. And when we regrouped in the kitchen, I saw something on the counter that made my blood run cold. A folder. Unmarked. Plain manila. Left out like it was meant to be found. I opened it. Inside, printed photos. Surveillance shots. Of me. At the bookstore. At the motel. Even one of me walking into Clara's house. The last one. Maggie and I together. From just hours ago. Jesus, I muttered. They've been 2 steps ahead this whole time. Maggie looked sick. They're not just watching. They're baiting you. And I realized she was right. This wasn't just about shutting us up. They wanted us scared. Scrambling. Off balance. I'd played into their hands from the start. But that ended now. I grabbed my phone and called Clara. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Still nothing. Then Maggie held up her phone. She's not picking up mine either. We looked at each other, the unspoken fear slamming into us like a brick wall. What if they got to her too? I asked. Maggie shook her head. Clara's smarter than that. I hope to God she was right. We packed up everything we could and left the house. Before I pulled out of the driveway, I looked back at Lucy's bedroom window. Still open. curtains swaying in the night air. I clenched the steering wheel so hard it creaked. "We find them," I said. "Tonight." Maggie nodded. "Then we start with your dad." I hadn't seen him since Mom's funeral. He didn't even hug me that day. Just said, "Your mother loved you in her own way," and walked off like I was a stranger at his doorstep. Now I was showing up with a different kind of grief, fueled by rage, fueled by truth. His house sat on the edge of town. Big, cold, the kind of place that was all windows and silence. We parked 2 houses down, killed the lights, and approached on foot. Every step felt heavier. I wasn't just walking up to my father's door. I was walking into the belly of the beast. Maggie hung back by the hedge. "I'll cover the back," she whispered. "You go in the front." I nodded and moved up the walkway. No lights on, but I knew he was in there. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. I reached for the handle. It turned. Unlocked. Inside, it was dead quiet. Same stone walls. Same cold hardwood floors. Everything exactly where it had always been. Except now, it felt like a museum to someone who never lived here. I stepped through the hallway, every sound echoing louder than it should have. Then I heard it. A voice. Faint. From the basement. I crept down the stairs. One at a time. At the bottom, the door was cracked open. I pushed it gently. And there he was. My father. Sitting alone in a leather chair, facing a bank of monitors. Surveillance feeds. One for my motel. One for the bookstore. One showing Emily's house. And another. Lucy. Tied to a chair. Crying. I charged in. "Where is she?" He didn't flinch. Just looked over his shoulder at me, calm as ever. "Hello, James," he said softly. "You weren't supposed to see this." I walked right up to him, grabbed his collar. "You sick?" He cut me off, voice low. "She's safe. For now." "Why? Why are you doing this?" He sighed. "Because Maggie wouldn't stay buried. And you couldn't leave it alone." I shoved him back. "This isn't just about her. You tried to erase her." He stood, and the look he gave me, like I was a naive child, too stupid to understand the world. I protected this family. From collapse. From shame. From people who would have destroyed us. He stepped closer. "And now, you're going to help me fix it." I laughed bitterly. "You think I'd ever?" He pulled a remote from his pocket and pointed it at the monitors. The feed of Lucy zoomed in. A timer flashed on the screen, counting down from 30 minutes. "If you want to see your niece again," he said, voice ice cold, "you'll bring me Maggie." I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared at that screen. Lucy. Little Lucy, tied to a chair in some dark, windowless room. Tears streaked down her cheeks. She was mouthing something over and over. "Auntie M. Auntie M." My heart fractured. I turned to him. To the man who raised me. Taught me right from wrong. Taught me how to throw a football. And all I saw was a stranger. No. Worse. A monster in a familiar face. "You're out of your mind," I said, fists clenched. "You're going to trade a child's life. Again, to save yourself?" He didn't blink. "This is bigger than you realize," he said. "There are things Maggie knows, things she wrote down. People will go to prison. Reputations will die. Everything we've built will be gone." I stepped closer, my voice low, shaking with rage. "You mean your money, your control, your name." He didn't deny it. "If Maggie turns up alive, it's over," he said. "Everything unravels. Todd's secrets. My accounts. Emily's past. You're threatening your granddaughter." He cut me off, voice flat. "She's a liability now. I didn't want this. But you forced my hand." I lunged, grabbed him by the collar, slammed him against the wall. "I swear to God, if you touch her." He smiled. That calm, dead smile that said he'd already won. "Then make the trade, son." I stumbled back. My hands were shaking. I had no weapon, no plan. Just 30 minutes and a soul-crushing choice. Give up Maggie, the cousin I'd just gotten back. Or let him destroy another little girl. Another innocent. Another Lucy. I ran. Out of the basement, out the front door, down the street. Maggie was waiting near the car, eyes wide. "What happened?" she said. I couldn't speak. I just handed her the phone, showed her the feed, the timer ticking down. Her face drained of color. "He wants me." I nodded. "He wants me to trade you for her." Maggie stared down at Lucy's image, chest rising and falling fast. Then she looked at me, and I saw something harden in her. A calm resolve, like she'd already decided. "I'll do it." "No," I said instantly. "No, I'm not losing you again. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. I yanked open the glove box and pulled out the folder we found at Emily's. The photos, the surveillance, the proof, and tucked inside the lining, something Clara had slipped me years ago without explanation. A flash drive. I never knew what was on it. Until now. I plugged it into my laptop, heart hammering. And what loaded made my skin crawl. Video files. Timestamps from 20 years ago. Footage from the lake house. The backyard. The shed. Hidden cameras. One showed Todd dragging Maggie, limp and bleeding, behind the trees. Another, my father paying a woman in cash, handing over Maggie's favorite stuffed rabbit. Another was a conversation. Fuzzy audio, but clear enough. Todd, you said she'd stay quiet. Dad, then make sure she does. I turned to Maggie, stunned. These aren't just memories. This is evidence. She nodded slowly. Clara must have known. She was always smarter than we gave her credit for. I emailed the files to myself, then uploaded them to a secure drive. Copied the link. Then I did something my father would never expect. I texted him. No deal. Followed by the link. 30 seconds later, he called me. I answered. He didn't yell. Didn't threaten. Just said, "What did you do?" I smiled. I told the truth. He hung up. And the video feed of Lucy? It went dark. We jumped in the car and tore down the road, racing to the coordinates hidden in the folder metadata. Clara had left a digital breadcrumb trail. It led to an abandoned storage facility on the outskirts of town. We kicked in the door, and there she was, Lucy, tied up, crying, but alive. We ran to her, cut her loose, and Maggie held her like she was holding herself at that age, scared, hurt, but finally safe. We got to the police before he could spin a new story. Gave them everything. The drive, the files, the photos. And when they knocked on my father's door, he didn't even fight. He just smiled, like he'd known it would come eventually. They took Todd in too, dragged him out of his apartment, screaming about how it was just a scare tactic. My dad refused to say a word. Not in court, not in custody. And when the press asked for a statement, I gave them one. Just 3 words. She survived him. I watched the story go viral from Maggie's tiny apartment 6 states away. We sat on the floor, eating cereal like kids. Lucy was asleep on the couch, hugging the stuffed rabbit Maggie thought was long gone. Clara had kept it all these years. You ever think, Maggie said, that maybe the monster dies when the lie does? I looked at her, and for the first time in 20 years, I believed it. For a while, it felt like we won. The headlines burned through the internet like wildfire. Prominent businessman arrested in long-buried child disappearance case. Family secrets exposed after missing girl found alive 2 decades later. Heirs to silence. A story of wealth, power, and betrayal. Everyone wanted the scoop. Reporters camped outside the jail. Documentary crews sent emails before the trial even began. But Maggie? She didn't want fame. She wanted peace. And I think, more than anything, she wanted time to remember who she was before the silence took over. We stayed with Clara for a while. She was safe. Thankfully, turns out she disappeared on purpose the moment she realized what was happening. Left a trail of misinformation, ditched her phone, stayed off the grid until she knew we were okay. Smartest woman I've ever known. She kept saying one thing, over and over. Truth is like water. You can't hold it forever. The trial was ugly. They tried to paint Maggie as delusional, unstable. Said the footage was doctored. Claimed Todd had no memory of that night. My father's lawyers fought like wolves, but the truth had weight. And it crushed them. They got 20 years each. Not enough, in my opinion. But justice rarely feels complete. Maggie changed her name back. Not legally. Not yet. But she asked me to call her by the one we'd grown up with. Maggie. Just hearing it in the air again, it felt like reclaiming something sacred. She started therapy. Brought Lucy with her sometimes, just to talk. Just to make sure the nightmares didn't spread. Emily moved away after everything came out. She wasn't guilty. Not really. But the shame of what she didn't know, or maybe didn't want to know, was too much. We still talk, now and then. Mostly about Lucy. Never about Dad. I thought I'd feel relief. That once the truth was out, the weight would lift. But it didn't. Not right away. Turns out, when someone you love turns out to be the villain, you don't just mourn what they did. You mourn who you thought they were. I kept thinking about those quiet moments from my childhood. The nights by the lake, Dad's hand on my shoulder, his voice telling me stories before bed. Were any of them real? Or were they just part of the mask? I don't know. And maybe I never will. But I do know this. I won't let the past rewrite itself again. A few months after the trial, Maggie and I went back to Lake Rockwell. Just the two of us. The cabin had been sold, boarded up, faded, but the dock was still there. We stood on it together, side by side. The wind off the water was cold, but it felt clean. New. She dropped something into the lake. A small, rusted button from her old dress. It sank slow. She didn't cry. Neither did I. We just stood there, free. On the drive home, she turned to me. "You ever think," she said, "how lucky we are to have each other?" I nodded. "I used to wish I had a brother," she said. "Turns out I did. The whole time." I didn't say anything. Just reached over and held her hand. Lucy sleeps through the night now. No more waking up screaming. No more fear in her eyes when she sees a man in a baseball cap. She's healing. So are we. Sometimes the truth destroys everything you thought was safe. But sometimes that rebuilds you. Not into who you were before, but into someone braver. Someone who knows how to fight back. And when Lucy grows up and asks why the world is the way it is, I'll tell her the truth. All of it. Because silence didn't save Maggie. But telling the truth? It saved us all. It's been a year. 12 months since the trial. Since the handcuffs. Since the headlines. A year since I stood face to face with the man who raised me and saw nothing I recognized in his eyes. But also, a year since Maggie came back. A year since Lucy was saved. A year since the truth finally clawed its way out from the grave they tried to bury it in. I moved closer to Maggie. Literally. Got a place 5 blocks from her. Not too close. She still needs space. But close enough that if anything ever goes wrong again, I'll be there in minutes. She started working at a local youth center. Helping kids like her. The ones who fell through the cracks. The ones nobody believed. She's not loud about her story. Doesn't wear it like a badge. But the kids? They feel it. They know they're safe with her. Lucy's in 2nd grade now. Smart as hell. Still sleeps with that old stuffed rabbit some nights. The one that survived longer than any of us ever thought it would. She's got a therapist she adores and a laugh that makes people turn their heads in the grocery store. She's okay. She's gonna be better than okay. Clara passed away last month. Peacefully. We were both there when it happened. She looked at Maggie before she went and said one thing. "You came back." Like she'd been holding on all this time, just to see it for herself. We buried her with the flash drive in her hand. She earned that. As for me, I still have nightmares sometimes. The kind where I'm running through the woods, and I hear Lucy calling my name. But when I get to her, it's not Lucy. It's Maggie. Small. Shaking. Disappearing in front of me. And I always wake up sweating, heart racing. But when I look around, I remember. We made it. We made it out. People ask why I never changed my name. Why I didn't distance myself from the family, from the shame, the story, the blood. But I tell them the truth. I kept the name because it doesn't belong to them anymore. It belongs to us. To me. To Maggie. To Lucy. To the people who survived the silence and spoke anyway. Sometimes, when the lake is quiet and the air is still, I drive out there alone. I sit on the dock and listen. To the wind. To the water. To the ghosts that used to haunt that place. They don't anymore. They don't have power here. Not now. I used to think survival was the end of the story. But it's not. Survival is just the beginning. The real story, the one worth telling, is what you build after the ashes settle. And we're building something they'll never tear down again. A life. A family. The truth.